It's funny. Sometimes I think about all the different spiritual paths out there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of overwhelming, isn't it? It's like
It is.
you walk into a buffet, but
Yeah.
instead of food, it's like chanting and rituals and scriptures and
Right.
all these different schools of thought. Like, how do you even begin to choose?
Yeah.
And that's what makes today's deep dive so interesting.
Okay.
You brought this excerpt from an audio lecture, Osho Ek Omkar Satnam 08.mp3, which explores how Guru Nanak taught about navigating this confusing world of spiritual choices.
Yeah. And what I find so intriguing about Guru Nanak's approach is that he just kind of acknowledges this paradox of choice right up front.
Yeah.
He's not shying away from all those different paths out there.
Right.
And the fact that some of them are going to be misleading.
That's right. And you can't just spend your entire life, jumping from one path to the next, trying to figure out which one is, quote unquote, right? It's like
You'd never.
trying to find a grain of sand on a beach that never ends.
You'd never get there.
Exactly.
It's not only impractical, but it could actually lead you further from the truth.
So what does Guru Nanak say we should do instead? He talks about surrender, right?
He does.
But I have to admit, that word always makes me a little bit nervous.
Really?
Yeah, it kind of brings up images of just giving up.
Oh.
Or being passive and just accepting whatever happens, even if it's not pleasant.
I totally get that hesitation.
Yeah.
But the kind of surrender Guru Nanak's talking about is not passive at all.
Okay.
It's not about resigning yourself to some miserable life or ignoring injustice.
Right.
It's a total shift in perspective.
Okay.
He basically says, and I'm paraphrasing here, that anything that pleases the divine or happens according to this cosmic order that is inherently good.
Okay.
And there's this really beautiful quote from the lecture that sums it up.
Okay.
It's called which translates to, whatever pleases you, my Lord, is good. You are eternally safe and formless.
That quote really highlights the trust that's involved in all of this, doesn't it?
It does.
It's like saying, I might not get the bigger picture right now,
Right.
but I trust that there's a wisdom at play here that I just don't understand yet.
Exactly. And the lecture actually shares a story by Tolstoy to illustrate this whole surrender concept.
Oh,
It's about an angel and a cobbler. Have you ever heard that one?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, this angel gets sent to Earth with a really strange task.
Okay.
He has to laugh 3 times at his own folly,
Okay.
at the mistakes that he makes, because his human understanding is so limited.
I can already see how this is going to play out. The angel's coming from a heavenly perspective.
Right.
It's bound to clash with being here.
Exactly. The first time he laughs is when he runs into the stranger who needs help.
Okay.
So he offers him food and shelter, but this makes the angel's wife furious
Oh,
because all she sees is the inconvenience of it.
I see. So it's like what the angel saw as a simple act of kindness. His wife just saw as something that messed up their routine.
Exactly. And it highlights that first layer of surrender, recognizing that as humans, our understanding is inherently limited.
Right.
We just can't see or comprehend everything that's at work.
What about the second time the angel laughs?
Well, the stranger needs a new pair of boots, and the angel's a really good craftsman.
Okay.
So he sets out to make them, but ends up making slippers instead.
Slippers. That doesn't seem very useful.
Well, it might seem illogical,
Right.
but that's exactly the point. It shows how unpredictable life is.
Okay.
We try to make all these plans and control everything,
Yeah.
but life just unfolds in its own way.
I can definitely relate to that. You get so attached to a specific outcome,
Right.
and then things go in a totally different direction and you're disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe those unexpected turns were actually good things.
Maybe.
Maybe they were leading me to where I needed to be.
Could be. And that brings us to the third and final time the angel laughs.
Okay.
He had met these 2 orphaned girls, and he was really worried about what would happen to them.
Wow.
But when he goes back to check on them, they're
Yeah.
doing great.
Wow.
So all that worry was for nothing.
Yeah.
He was attached to this idea that they would struggle when that wasn't the reality at all.
He was clinging to a narrative.
Exactly. And this last laugh emphasizes the ultimate surrender,
Okay.
trusting that even when things are tough or uncertain,
Right.
there's a greater wisdom at play,
Mm-hmm.
a force working behind the scenes to guide us towards what's best for us.
It's a powerful message.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what would be possible if we could all learn to surrender to that wisdom.
It is a powerful question.
Yeah.
It really is the question, isn't it? What happens if we can actually let go of that need to control,
Mm-hmm.
to try and make our journey go exactly how we want it to go? What happens then? What shows up when we kind of release those imaginary reins?
Right.
I remember I was meditating once, and
Yeah.
I suddenly felt this wave of anxiety wash over me
Oh,
about all the things I wasn't doing, all the
Yeah.
paths I wasn't following.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Like you're missing some vital piece of the puzzle.
Yes, exactly. But then I thought about that story with the angel and the cobbler.
Right.
It's not about trying to find the right path.
Yeah.
It's about seeing the rightness in whatever path you're on.
I love that.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, if we're not supposed to focus on rituals or specific paths,
Mm-hmm.
where should we be focusing? What becomes our anchor when we're in this sea of surrender?
The lecture points us toward ahamya, Abhitekmin.
Okay.
You know, you've probably heard it chanted during meditation,
Yeah.
but Guru Nanak saw it as something much deeper.
Okay.
He saw it as like this primordial sound, this
Mhm.
vibration that's behind everything that exists.
So it's not just a word, it's more like a key to deeper understanding or something.
Yeah, key is a great way to put it. It's like we're tuning ourselves to the frequency of the universe,
Wow.
becoming one with creation itself.
Yo.
And the lecture actually connects this idea to biofeedback. Have you ever messed around with biofeedback?
A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly with those apps that track your heart rate when you meditate.
Right.
What's the connection to what Guru Nanak was teaching?
Well, think about it. Biofeedback uses technology so we can be more aware of what's happening inside us.
Yeah.
We can see our heart rate slowing down, our breathing getting more steady.
Right.
And seeing that actually helps us relax more deeply. The lecture suggests that those ancient temples might have done something similar.
Really?
But without all the technology, of course.
Of course.
Architecture, the way sound moved through the space, all the chanting. It was all designed to make Amadam resonate more.
Okay.
So people could feel themselves connecting to this universal vibration.
Wow, that's amazing. It reminds me of those giant cathedrals in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
The sound is just incredible.
Right.
Like it reverberates through every single stone.
Right.
Maybe they were designed to tap into something beyond just the physical space.
Exactly. And if we think of Amadam as this underlying vibration, this hum of the universe,
Okay.
then surrender is less about being passive and more about aligning with something much bigger than ourselves. It's about letting go of the illusion that we're in control and becoming part of this massive symphony of existence.
That's beautiful. It makes you wonder if we're all essentially vibrating with a yum.
Yeah.
How can we be more aware of it in our everyday lives?
Yeah.
Can we train ourselves to hear it, to feel it?
The lecture doesn't give us like a step-by-step guide or anything, but
Yeah.
it does give us some direction.
Okay.
It says that true surrender is something we work on constantly. It's like peeling away the ego's grip on reality. We have to notice when we're stuck in our own limited point of view
Right.
and then choose to trust in something bigger.
So it's not about reaching some blissful state where we just float above all life's problems.
No.
It's about finding this deeper way of being
Right.
that lets us face those problems with grace and strength.
Exactly. And it's important to remember this isn't about pretending the hard parts of life don't exist. It's not about forcing yourself to be happy all the time.
That's a good point.
Right.
I think it's like learning to surf.
Oh, okay.
You can't control the waves,
Right.
but you can learn to ride them.
Right.
Find your balance, even when things are constantly changing.
That's a great analogy that really highlights the active side of surrender.
Yeah.
It's not about being passive. It's about learning to dance with life's rhythm, to move with the current instead of fighting against it.
So if we're always looking for this alignment with a grayabum, this surrender to a bigger wisdom,
Yeah.
does that mean we have to give up all other spiritual practices?
Not necessarily. It's more about shifting the reason why we do those practices.
So instead of doing them to achieve something,
Right.
we do them with an open mind and heart.
Exactly. It's not about reaching enlightenment.
Yeah.
It's about just being present with whatever comes up.
Right.
It's like we're moving from a state of doing to a state of being.
And that shift changes how we experience those practices.
Oh.
Meditation isn't a chore anymore. It
Right.
becomes a moment of quiet surrender.
Uh-huh.
Chanting becomes a way to connect with that universal vibration.
And it's not limited to those formal practices either.
Yeah.
This feeling of surrender can be part of everything we do,
Mm-hmm.
how we approach our work, our relationships, even the everyday stuff.
Yeah.
It's about bringing that awareness, that willingness to let go to every single moment.
So it's not about escaping from the world.
No.
It's about finding a deeper way to be in the world.
Exactly. And the lecture suggests that When we truly embrace this way of being,
Uh-huh.
when we can finally let go of trying to control and understand everything,
Yeah.
that's when we start experiencing life in a whole new way.
We become more present, more connected.
More in tune with the flow of existence.
Yes. And we start to see how everything is connected.
Yeah.
We realize we're not just separate individuals struggling to get by.
Mm-hmm.
We're all part of this huge web of life.
We start to see the divine everywhere, even in the ordinary things, the hard things, the things we usually overlook.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's the real power of a gewim, isn't it?
It is.
It's not just a sound, it's a symbol.
Right.
A reminder that we're connected to something infinite, to the source of all creation.
Exactly.
So if our whole existence is basically a vibration of a gewim, how can we be more tuned in to that sound in our daily lives? What are some practical things we can do to cultivate that inner surrender, that connection to the universal hum? We've been talking about gewim as this thing we embody, this thing we tune into.
Yeah.
But for someone who's still trying to grasp this whole surrender thing,
Right.
where do they even start?
It's definitely a journey, not like a one-time thing.
Uh-huh.
And I think the first step is to be curious
Okay.
instead of trying to be perfect. Remember those biofeedback apps we talked about?
Yeah, the ones that track your heart rate while you're meditating.
Exactly. Those can be really helpful for exploring that link between how we feel inside and what's happening around us.
Okay.
And even if you don't have a fancy app, just paying attention to your breath can be like its own kind of biofeedback.
Oh, interesting.
Notice how your breath changes throughout the day.
Yeah.
Like when you're stressed versus relaxed, or when you're doing something you enjoy.
It's like being a detective of your own inner world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as you become more aware of those little changes, you start to see how your thoughts, your emotions, even your environment are all connected.
Wow.
It's like a mini version of that universal connection that AIM represents.
So it's not about forcing ourselves to feel a certain way. It's about becoming more aware of what's already there inside us.
Exactly. And that awareness, that attention,
Yeah.
that's the foundation of surrender.
Okay.
It helps us quiet all that mental chatter
Right.
and tap into a deeper wisdom, a knowing that goes beyond words.
And that deeper wisdom is where we find the strength to surrender.
I
Right.
think so.
It's not about weakness or giving up.
No.
It's about tapping into a strength that comes from aligning with something much bigger than ourselves.
Well said. It's about realizing we're not alone in this journey.
Right?
We're all connected by that same universal vibration, that same divine spark that gives life to everything.
I'm remembering that quote from the lecture about the person who can feel bliss even while sitting on a burning pyre.
Yeah, powerful imagery.
It is. But it also shows the paradox of surrender.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about running away from the world or pretending the hard stuff isn't there.
Right.
It's about finding that inner peace that helps us face those challenges with more grace and resilience.
That's the heart of it. I think surrender isn't about giving up on life. It's about giving up on our limited ideas of how life should be.
Right.
It's about opening ourselves to all the possibilities that come when we let go of control.
And that openness, that willingness to embrace the unknown, that's where real transformation happens.
I agree.
Where we discover who we really are.
Beyond all the masks and roles we play.
Exactly. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Guru Nanak's teachings, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this?
I think it's this. Surrendering is not a straight line.
Okay.
It's more like a spiral.
A spiral.
We might circle around the same ideas, the same challenges,
Yeah.
but each time we come back around, we see things a little differently. We understand a little more. We appreciate the dance between surrender and grace in our lives.
It's a beautiful reminder that there's no need to rush or force anything.
Right.
The journey itself is the transformation.
And the more we can surrender to that process, the more we align with that universal hum of Aryam,
Yeah.
and the more we discover the peace, joy, and connection that are at the core of existence.
Thank you for diving deep with us today. We hope exploring Guru Nanak's teachings has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to find your own rhythm in the dance of surrender.
Please like, share and subscribe.